Hi everyone, welcome to SMI Hub. Today I'll be talking about something very important, especially if you plan to study in Canada or immigrate to Canada, and that's the IELTS exam. Once again, I'm Julie, and if you love my channel, if you love my content, don't forget to subscribe and also like my video. Thank you so much. Okay, so today I'll be talking specifically about how I scored a band 8 and 9 in all sections of my IELTS. And as we all know, IELTS is an important exam when you want to do, if you want to apply for express entry, you need the IELTS. And not only do you need it, you need to have a very good score in it. And there are times when people are like stuck at specific bands of the exam and they are just looking for how to improve their score. I'm going to tell you guys and just let you know tips and tricks that I used that made a lot of difference during the exam, and that helped me in getting the kind of score that I did get. So first, let me just show you my result. I have blurred out some very important part of the exam, but here it is. Okay, so I know that this score is not perfect, but I think that it's good enough, especially if you want to apply for the express entry. So I'm going to start first by giving you general information about what you can do to have a good attempt on the IELTS. So before I start, I want you to know that I attempted the general IELTS the first time last year, August, and I did it at a very sensitive time in my life because I just had a baby like some months prior. So at that time I didn't have all the time in the world to prepare. So I basically had to crash prepare, and I think I can give like short-term tricks, especially if you have the exam very soon, that can make a lot of difference. So before I talk about the short-term trips, I want to just talk about long-term preparation plans. So for those of you that are going to be writing the IELTS in like a year or 2 years time, I would advise that right now you start reading more. So the IELTS is an English exam, and it's a basic English exam that tests your vocabulary basically and how well you speak in English. All of this can be improved by reading more. Read more storybooks, read more novels, read more books, read newspapers. Just make sure you keep reading. What this will do is that it will help you, it will expand your vocabulary, and you add more words to your reservoir of words, right? And the more words you know, the more you easily comprehend passages and all of that thing that you need to really perform well in the IELTS exam. So let's move straight to the short-term tips or things that you can actually do, especially if you've been doing this, if you've been attempting it and you are basically stuck on a band. These are like short-term tips that can really help you in the IELTS exam. So the first I'll be starting with is that you concentrate on your weakest point. So because there are 4 sections of this exam, there is a speaking, there is writing, there is listening, and there is reading. I'm sure we don't have equal strength in all 4 sections. Like in my case, because I'm a PhD student, I do a lot of reading. So I knew that that was going to be a breeze, even as an international student. I knew that it wasn't going to be an issue, especially, when you get to read a lot of papers and a lot of more technical and complicated text. So this comes really easy, and it's no surprise that I had a band 9 on my reading. So that's basically between a 39 or a 40 out of 40 questions that I got correct. But I knew that writing, even though I'm also versed at writing and I do a lot of writing as a PhD student, but I knew that the IELTS writing exam is very technical, and I know that it's so easy to underestimate it. So I really took my time to prepare hard for that and source around for tips that would really help me to ace that part of my examination. And the listening, I knew also wasn't going to be much of an issue, especially because I'd been in Canada for a year and a half, or 2 years by that time. So I had internalized the way they speak here, and my ears were tuned to the way they speak. So if you are a foreign student and you're currently out of Canada, or if you are new to Canada and you are not used to the way people talk here, you might want to like listen to a lot of news channels and just listen to podcasts, just to tune your ears to pick out these sounds and make you more comfortable with this listening examination. So I'm on the point that you have to concentrate on your weakest point. Look at all these 4 sections and decide on the section that you think might really be hard for you to get a good score, and make sure you concentrate on that. But also be sure to prepare thoroughly for all the sections altogether. So the next tip I want to say is that you have to be very mindful of time. So you have to go as fast as you can, but yet as accurate as you can. And the best tip for this is that if you have, like, for example, if you have 60 minutes for the reading session and perhaps there are 40 questions, you try to divide the 60 minutes by 40, and it will give you a rough estimate of how many minutes you need to spend on one question. If you are going way past the amount of time that you should allocate for each question, you should then move to the next one, because there are times you find out that for these examinations, bonus questions are often at the end of each section that you might miss if you do not manage your time well and you are unable to reach that part of the exam. So make sure you manage your time well, but yet be as accurate as you can. Spend as much time as you can spend on a question before moving to the next. And that goes to my next point. If you are unsure about a particular answer, use elimination method. This works a lot for listening passages where you might have misheard something, or you might have there might have been an oversight and you were not able to like hear a part of a portion of the passage. In these cases where you are not sure and time is going, the task is moving on and you have to move to the next question, just glance through the questions and use the elimination method to narrow it down to 1 or 2 options, and then you choose the one that you think might be correct. And then I want to move to the next point, and that's maximize the time allocated for each question. I have talked about this in the second point. You need to maximize the time. So you want to spend as much time as you can on each question, but still take advantage of the time. So if you have 1.5 minutes, do your best to maximize that 1.5 minutes for that question. And it requires full concentration. The IELTS exam just requires concentration. You need to really put your mind together before you start and just put your best per each question, because once the exam is over, it's over. So you want to really make sure that your mental game is strong, you are well rested the night before, and you are ready to go on this 3 hours exam, and then you are like really focused. Fortunately, most times where the exams are conducted are always quiet, and this helps a lot in you being able to focus. So basically, just take advantage of the time you allocate to each question and make sure you create a balance. Then if you finish a section earlier, don't just doodle away and just dream away. Make sure you go back and check your answers. This can make a difference, especially if you're trying to move from a band to another band. So if you're on band 8 and you want to make an 8.5, for the express entry, all this, even half a band makes a lot of difference in your points as a primary applicant. So you want to make sure that you are certain before you move to the next section. So if you have like 3 minutes left for that section, go back and check each question and be sure that you have it all correct. And then the next point I want to give, this is still talking about general tips for all the section, is that make sure you rest properly the night before. The night before the exam is not the time to start like learning new words or crashing or you just stressing yourself. Make sure you rest well so that you are well prepared mentally for the exam. So now I'm going to go section by section to give the tips that I used and how it really helped me. So the first section I want to talk about is writing. As I said, writing for me, I really focused on that because I've heard that the average score in writing for the IELTS is actually a 7. So that means that it's a 7. So that means that most people don't get like above a 7, and I wanted to like maximize my band as much as I could, so I focused a lot on writing, and I'm just going to briefly give you tips for this. So the first is, do not choose paper IELTS if you are better writing on the computer, because for the paper IELTS you have to, for writing is very tricky doing the paper format of the exam, because you have to like write with a pencil, and if there is a mistake you have to really like clean out maybe a whole sentence to rewrite the sentence. I mean, you using the computer or doing the computer based can save you a whole lot of time. You know, with computers you just like delete or highlight or just cut and delete. That's like less than half of a second you are done, and then you rewrite, and you can keep like correcting and rewriting as much as you can and as fast as you can. But for paper it's different. There was a time I realized that I made a mistake somewhere in the paragraph. I had to like wipe it off, and then it affected the whole structure of the paragraph, so I had to like clean off. That's with the eraser now. I had to clean off like 3 lines or 4 lines and then rewrite all this again. And this is time, you know. For writing you need to really be on top of your game with time. You need to focus on making sure that you maximize your time and that you are time conscious. So all these things can lead to a delay and just waste your time. So I really recommend computer based for writing. And for the IELTS, I recommend computer based. I have done the TOEFL before. That was like 2-3 years ago I did it, and it was an academic based TOEFL. So I did the computer exam for the TOEFL, and it was just so different. So if you can, as much as you can, I recommend the computer based. And then the next thing I want to say is that make sure you do the longer task first. There are 2 tasks in the writing section. There is the long essay and the short essay. So make sure you do the longer one first, so that, you know, because it carries more weight in terms of your marks. It carries more marks, so make sure you do it first. That's just my advice. I don't know how computer-based IELTS is. I've not done it. I don't know if you have to like finish the short task before you can move to the long task. If that's the case, then don't spend too much time on the short task. Wrap it up as soon as you can and move to the next one. Remember, you have 60 minutes on the writing section, and I think 20 minutes, like, you can devote the amount of time you want on each section. So try to devote like at least 40 minutes on the longer one and 20 minutes on the letter. And then the next one is that make sure you, for the letter now, for your letter writing, make sure you practice the different kind of salutations and sign-offs that there are. So for salutations, I mean the dear madam and dear sir or madam, dear Helen, hi, hello, you know, at the beginning of the letter. Make sure you know the right salutation to use for the right type of letter. There are 3 types. There is the formal, there is informal, and the semi-formal, and they all have different types of salutations that can go along with them. For instance, you don't want to use hello or hey or hi when writing a formal letter. You can't even use it, or you shouldn't even use it when writing a semi-formal letter. So make sure you know the right thing to do. And then for the sign-offs, there are different kinds of sign-off. For instance, you don't want to use take care for a formal letter. That's very informal. And also there is yours sincerely. Yours sincerely should be used when you know the name of the person you are writing to, while yours faithfully should be used when you don't, like when you do use dear sir or madam. So all of these things, it's very nuanced. Make sure you know all the things you need to know in terms of salutation and sign off. And that brings me to the next point. So when writing your letter, as much as you want to really develop the content and make it good, especially if you're going to write the letter last, make sure that you give enough time to sign off before your time is up. Some people write good letters, but then at the end they are unable to sign off before the time is up. That will really affect your score. It will really affect your score. So the sign off and the salutation, all of those things must be intact. Okay, make sure it's intact. And then for your content, make sure you address the specific points or the specific question. So for your letter, for instance, if you are told to address your employer and tell him you want to take a maternity leave, make sure that point is in there. Don't just ramble on about so many other things that you make up and neglect the important thing that you need to put there. So make sure you put the point, the instruction that is given in the question. And then I want to move on to the essay. So the essay is the longer task in writing, and there are different kind of essays depending on what you are given for your examination. The first thing I want to say is that make use of complex and compound sentences. Don't just make use of simple sentence like I will go tomorrow. She loves to eat. Full stop. I'm going to town next week. Full stop. No, you want to try to link these sentences together. So for instance, you want to use sentences like I was at the gym before she came. She drank the water while waiting for the bus, you know. Make sure you use complex and compound sentences, and you can do this by using these linking words like while, although, before, because, for, if, though. You know, there are so many like that. There are many times I notice that, especially international students, they want to just make it so simple so that there will be less mistake. But believe me, as much as you can, make sure there are no mistakes, but use complex and compound sentences. If you do not use these kind of sentences at all, you are going to have a cap to which your band can ever rise. Like, you can't go beyond a specific band without using complex and compound sentences in your letter. So very important if you're trying to improve your score. And the next thing is, with the essay, make sure you follow instructions, just like the letter. Make sure you follow instructions and address what you were instructed to address. So because there are different types of essay, there is the discuss both view essay, there is disadvantage and advantage essay, there is opinion essay, there's problem and solution essay. So if you are given a particular question and then you are answering something else, you ruin your chance of getting a good score in the writing section. For instance, if you are asked to say the advantage and disadvantage of technology and you just talk about the advantage, even if you write 7 points, that is 7 paragraphs with 7 points that show the advantage of technology, but you do not put any disadvantage, you can't go beyond half of the score for that writing because you've not addressed the full question. So you have to read that question again, maybe twice or thrice, and make sure that you are addressing what exactly needs to be addressed. There are times when the question will ask for maybe the advantage and disadvantage and then tell you to state your opinion. So it could go like technology has come to stay, but the bad certainly outweighs the good. Discuss and give what your opinion about this. Say what you think about this, you know. So because the question is asking you to give your opinion, you have to make sure that after you define technology, after you talk about the advantages, or even before you talk about the advantages and disadvantage, make sure you state your side, make sure you state your opinion clearly, okay, so that the person grading will know that you actually answered the question. And then I want to say that you should count smartly. You know, there is a word limit for the essay. So for instance, if the essay is 350 words, you don't want to start counting each word one by one. The best way to do this is to count the number of words in one sentence. On one line of your on one line of the page. So a whole line of the page has certain number of words. So just count those words and multiply it by the number of lines on that page. So if you have 12 lines on the page and there are 10 words on one line, so you know you have an average of 120 words. That's the best thing to do. Make sure you multiply it instead of counting one by one. And then we're going to move to reading. So reading is just a test of how well you comprehend written text. So my tips are not a lot. I want to say that you should read the questions well before you answer, before you go to the passage. So before you start reading, or before you start reading the passage, make sure you read the questions first. Even if it's like 2 minutes you have before before you start reading the passage, just read that question so you have an idea of what is coming, or what you need to look out for in the passage. And another thing is to give full attention to each question and answer as accurately as you can within the time allocated, within the time you allocated for each question. So you want to make sure you give your best for each question. And this is the trick to passing the reading. As I said, I had a band 9, that's 39 to 40. I made sure I paid full attention to each question. Like, I knew that each question carried equal marks, so I had to like really give my full attention. So I maximized the time I allocated. If it's 1 minute, I maximized it. And by the time I'm moving to the next question, I was pretty certain that I had the right answer. So use all the method that I have described earlier. Elimination method, if you are not certain, just make sure you pay full attention to each question. And then the next one is to know that one question can make a difference in your band for reading. So the gap is so small. So you have 39 to 40 is a band 9, and then I think 37 to 39 or something is 8.5. So one question can make a difference. Make sure you pay full attention to each question. And let's just move to listening. So for the listening, make sure that if you miss a point while listening, don't wait in regret trying to determine what you think it should be, because the task is playing on. It keeps moving. It's not going to wait for you. So if you miss a question, look at the answer and try to determine what you think is correct and move on so that you don't miss more questions. Okay, and what can really help is to make sure before each section starts, you look at the question, just glance through the question, because the listening goes by very fast. So before any section starts, glance through the question to have an idea of what is coming. And then when it starts, you know what to look for, you know what to tune your ears to look for. And if you miss one question in listening, move to the next one. Don't waste your time. And the next tip I'll give for listening is that if you have a little extra time after a section, don't just waste it away. Use it to quickly read the question for the next task. So if you have a little time left, after you've checked your answers and you're sure it's correct, you still have some time left, move to the next section and just look at the question, glance through the question, so that you are prepared or you are in a good frame of mind for the next task. And the last one is, if you this point I want to say now is just my personal is my own personal opinion. Now it's just my sentiment. It's personal and it's not a hard rule, or it might not work for everyone. But I want to just suggest that if you think you are not sure, you are not sure of what you heard, and you are not sure of an answer, most of the time the answer that comes first to your mind is usually the correct one. This is for listening now. So if you think you heard 1982 but you're not sure, and then you're looking at the options, you see 1983, 1984, 1985, usually that first one you think you heard, that 1982, will likely be the correct one. So if this just helps in the case when you are in a tight corner, you need to move to the next task but you are not sure of what exactly you heard. As I said, it's my opinion. Okay, so now I move to speaking. And for speaking, if you are not a native speaker, just like me, I'm not a native speaker of English. English is our official language where I come from. Well, it's not my native, it's not my mother tongue. So I had to learn it in school, and also I picked it up in like almost everyone speaks English in Nigeria where I come from. So if you are like me and English is not your native language, you need to really practice speaking. You need to really practice speaking. Practice a lot of tasks. Talk to yourself, talk in front of the mirror, do as much practice as you can. And I just have a few tips. The first one is, when you start your task, don't stop talking until either the examiner cuts you in or time is up or something. Don't stop talking. So I made that mistake because I had an 8 in my speaking. I made that mistake for my task 2. I stopped talking. I felt like I prepared my points, and then I started talking. I think I was asked to talk about a time when I had to share something with someone. So I made my point, and I made sure my point addressed all the questions that all the prompts that I had. And I started talking, and I talked until I was done with all my points. I should have kept on talking, but I didn't. And I started looking at the examiner. Well, she was nice because she helped me by prompting me to talk. So she was like, keep on talking. And it was really awkward because I didn't know what to say anymore. If I had not stopped talking, probably, the momentum would still be there. It affected my score, obviously, because I really did well in my task 1 and 3, but the task 2 was just weird. So my advice to you is, even if you are done, first, when you are trying to prepare for this task, make sure you put as many points as you can. As many points as you can, so that you don't exhaust your talking points before the time is up. And then, even if you do exhaust your talking point, keep on talking. Just look for something to say. Of course, you don't want to talk about irrelevant things. Make sure you talk about things that are relevant to the question. Okay, just keep on talking. Remember, the speaking test is a test of how natural you are, how easy it is for you to talk, how natural you are speaking in English. So just treat the examiner like a friend and make it as conversational as possible. Okay, because if you treat the examiner like an examiner, you're going to be tensed. And if you're not a native speaker, you're going to start to stumble on your words and all of that. So come in there as if with a mindset that you're talking to a friend or a colleague or something, and then just keep talking. Don't stop talking. Okay, so that's all the tips that I have for you. I really hope that all of this makes a difference and that you've also learned from my mistakes. Till the next time on this channel, bye guys.